Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling strangely heavy, emotionally drained, subtly twisted, and couldn't quite explain why? We tend to think that harmful people are loud, obvious, or cruel. But Carl Jung, the visionary Swiss psychologist, taught us something far more unsettling: that the most dangerous influences often come from ordinary people who have no idea what drives them. According to Jung, the psyche contains hidden archetypes and shadow aspects, inner forces we suppress or ignore. Left unchecked, these unconscious elements can begin to control how we relate, behave, and even who we become. In this video, we'll explore 6 subtle but powerful psychological types Jung would have urged us to notice. These aren't villains in the traditional sense. They're everyday people acting out unconscious scripts. Their danger lies in their invisibility. If exploring the hidden corners of the mind fascinates you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. It helps spread these insights to more people like you. Let's now uncover these 6 shadowy archetypes, how they show up, how they pull you in, and how to recognize their influence before it takes a toll on your well-being. 1. The emotional puppeteer, the one who controls without knowing they're doing it. You might know someone like this, a partner, friend, or relative who always seems emotionally fragile. They say things like, "I don't know what I'd do without you," or, "If you ever leave, I'll fall apart." At first, it feels like love, but over time, you find yourself constantly tiptoeing around them, afraid of setting them off. They aren't trying to control you, not consciously, but somehow, you've become the caretaker of their inner storms. This is the emotional puppeteer, someone whose inner wounds operate beneath their awareness. Jung called these forces complexes, emotional scars with a life of their own. These complexes can behave like small personalities inside us, hijacking thought, feeling, and action. In the puppeteer, a deep abandonment wound might drive them to cling, guilt trip, or break down at the slightest sign of distance. Their unconscious fear becomes a survival mechanism. If I can keep you feeling guilty or needed, you won't abandon me. They aren't choosing manipulation. They're being steered by an internal wound they've never faced. The cost for you? Emotional depletion. You pour yourself into their needs, while your own voice fades. You begin to lose your sense of self, caught in the emotional tides of someone else's psyche. To protect yourself, learn to spot the warning signs: guilt-laden language, hyperdependency, or emotional collapse when you assert your boundaries. Remember, someone's emotions are theirs to manage. You can be compassionate without sacrificing your center. Support is fine, but you are not their healer. Jung would remind us, boundaries aren't selfish, they're spiritual discipline. Encourage them to seek inner work or therapy, but know when it's time to pull back. Your empathy should not become a leash. 2. The mask wearer, the one who vanishes behind appearances. This person is a master of presentation, always polished, always pleasant, the perfect coworker, the always there friend. But no matter how close you get, something feels off, as if you're engaging with a performance, not a person. You see the smile, hear the charm, but their real emotions remain sealed behind glass. This is the mask wearer, someone who lives through the image they've built rather than the truth of who they are. In Jungian terms, this is a person consumed by their persona, the social mask we all use to function in the world. While having a persona is normal, Jung warned of the danger in becoming it. When the role you play becomes your identity, the authentic self is suppressed, and that buried self doesn't vanish quietly. The risk? You may fall for the image and miss the person entirely. And one day, you might witness the mask slip, a sudden mood swing, an emotional outburst, or an uncharacteristic withdrawal. It can be disorienting. But that rupture is the hidden self finally demanding attention. How should you respond to the mask wearer? With presence, not pressure. Invite sincerity through your own openness. Let them know you see beyond their role and are safe for what's real. Sometimes, All it takes is permission. But be mindful. Not everyone is willing to come out from behind the mask. When someone insists on hiding behind perfection, understand that intimacy will remain shallow. You can't force someone to be real, and you shouldn't sacrifice your own emotional truth to keep the performance going. Real connection depends on mutual authenticity. Protect that standard. 3. The shadowbound. The one who breaks without warning. They seem impossibly good, always calm, always kind, never shaken. They claim they don't get angry or don't let things get to them. And then one day, over something minor, they snap. Their tone turns sharp. Their face distorts in rage. You're left stunned, wondering where this person came from. Jung would say, their shadow just took over. The shadow, in Jung's framework, is the unconscious storehouse of everything we reject about ourselves. Anger, desire, envy, darkness. The shadowbound has tried to lock those elements away. But buried emotions don't disappear. They gain pressure. Eventually, the dam breaks, and what's been suppressed floods out in moments of stress or conflict. These outbursts seem out of character, but in truth, they are the missing pieces of that person's whole self. The denied parts finally making themselves known. And therein lies the danger. Unpredictability. One moment they're serene, the next they're a stranger. You're not interacting with reason. You're colliding with the unconscious. Shadowbound people also tend to project their disowned traits onto others. They may accuse you of being rude, aggressive, or selfish, not because you are, but because they refuse to see those things in themselves. You become a screen for their repressed truths. How can you deal with this? First, don't take it personally. Their reaction is about them, not you. If you're close to someone like this, gently open space for honest emotion. Say, it's okay to feel frustrated, or I'd rather hear your truth than your silence. Encouraging gradual expression might help release pressure before the explosion, but ultimately, they must meet their own shadow. You cannot wrestle with their darkness for them. If their eruptions are harming you and they refuse to grow or get help, walking away may be the healthiest response. Remember, their turmoil isn't your responsibility, but recognizing it and refusing to become its casualty is your strength. 4. The virtue-wrapped controller, the one who masks dominance as guidance. They speak in the language of care, concern, and moral responsibility. But beneath the surface, something else is operating. The virtue-wrapped controller may be a parent, mentor, or partner who constantly tells you what's best for you. They say, I only say this because I care, or it's for your own good. But somehow, you're always the one being corrected, judged, guided, controlled. What's happening here? Psychologically, this person has unconsciously fused their identity with a higher moral archetype, the judge, the wise one, the savior. Jung noted that when someone becomes inflated with an idealized self-image, they stop recognizing their shadow. Their drive for power or superiority is cloaked in righteousness, making it nearly impossible for them to see how domineering or dismissive they've become. In truth, they're projecting their need for control onto you while convincing themselves they're just helping. It's a classic Jungian paradox. Their shadow, pride, rigidity, judgment, remains completely unconscious, hidden behind the veil of good intentions. The cost to you? It's psychological suffocation. You start second-guessing your own decisions, values, and worth. You shrink yourself to avoid being wrong again. Over time, you may even adopt their critical voice as your own inner narrator, making you feel guilty simply for wanting independence. To reclaim your autonomy, draw a clear line between guidance and control. Healthy advice respects your freedom. If their help consistently makes you feel smaller, it's not help. It's manipulation dressed in virtue. You can say, I appreciate your concern, but this is something I need to choose for myself. Jung's concept of individuation, becoming your own full self, depends on learning to trust your inner compass. You do not owe anyone control over your path, no matter how holy or helpful they claim to be. If your boundaries are dismissed, step back. Some people confuse righteousness with authority, and you are not required to submit to either. 5. The wounded echo. The one who turns you into a character in their unresolved story. This archetype entangles you in emotional chaos that has little to do with you, but everything to do with the past they've never resolved. Imagine being in a relationship where you're constantly accused of things you never did: infidelity, betrayal, emotional neglect. You find yourself apologizing for offenses you didn't commit. Why? Because you've unknowingly stepped into someone else's trauma, their wound, their internal battlefield. Jung called this a complex, a bundle of unresolved emotional energy formed by past experiences. Complexes aren't just memories, they have life, mood, and momentum of their own. When triggered, they override the present. The person doesn't see you, they see someone from their past, someone who hurt them, disappointed them, left them. And in that moment, you become a stand-in for the villain in their internal drama. This leads to a destabilizing relationship, full of tension, confusion, and guilt. You feel like you're always walking through a minefield. Small things become huge triggers. You try to prove your love, your loyalty, your patience, but it's never enough. Because what they're reacting to isn't happening now. It's already happened long ago, and you've just become the symbol of it. What can you do? First, don't take it personally. Their pain is real, but their projection onto you is misplaced. If you notice patterns, like disproportionate anger over minor things, try to reflect it back gently. Say, I think this reaction might come from something deeper, not just what happened today. Still, it's important to accept your limits. You cannot heal someone else's complex through kindness alone. If they refuse to explore their patterns, refuse therapy, or continually place you in the role of the villain, then your emotional safety is at risk. Jung taught that every person must face their own unconscious. You are not responsible for fighting their ghosts. If necessary, step away. Choosing peace doesn't make you unkind. It makes you aware. 6. The emotional leech. The one who feeds on your energy without giving back. The last archetype on our journey may be the most draining of all. This is the person who, after every interaction, leaves you feeling empty, as if your emotional reserves have been siphoned off. They constantly bring you problems, complaints, or dramas, expecting you to be their emotional life raft. At first, you might feel sympathetic. After all, they always seem to be struggling. But soon you realize nothing changes. They don't want solutions. They want attention, reassurance, and your constant presence. Their stories don't evolve. They repeat. And your role becomes clear: listener, comforter, emotional battery. In symbolic terms, the vampire is the perfect metaphor, a being that cannot survive without draining others. That's what this person has become. They haven't learned how to tap into their own inner resources. Instead, they unconsciously attach themselves to others, hoping to absorb strength, validation, or purpose from the outside in. You may initially feel like you're helping, but over time, the imbalance wears you down. You start to dread seeing their name light up your phone. You anticipate another emotional spiral, and if you try to set a limit, they may respond with guilt-laced lines like, "You don't care about me anymore," or "I thought I could count on you." This is the emotional leech's true trap, using guilt to keep the cycle going. It's not malicious, but it is manipulative, and it slowly erodes your mental clarity and emotional well-being. To protect yourself, you must draw firm, compassionate boundaries. Limit how often and how long you engage. Decline calls when you need rest. Gently guide them towards self-reflection or professional help. But know that you are not responsible for saving them. You're not a limitless energy source. Jung would remind us, your psychological health matters. Your life is yours. You can offer kindness, but you are not obligated to bleed for someone else's healing. Protect your emotional space and remember, Compassion doesn't mean self-sacrifice. Carl Jung's message echoes through time with quiet urgency. The most damaging forces in our lives are not always cruel. They are unconscious. The people who shape us most, for better or worse, are often unaware of the scripts they're acting out. These 6 archetypes, the emotional puppeteer, the mask wearer, the shadow-bound, the virtue-wrapped controller, the wounded echo, and the emotional leech, are not monsters. They're human, and their danger lies not in their intent, but in their blindness. But here's the power. Awareness transforms everything. When you can name these patterns, in others or in yourself, you take back your clarity. You reclaim your boundaries. You become less reactive, more conscious, and more grounded in your own truth. This is individuation, the path Jung laid before us. Not perfection, not moral superiority, just the ongoing work of becoming whole. Now I invite you to reflect. Which of these archetypes resonated most with you? Have you encountered them in others? Or maybe glimpsed them in the mirror? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your insights could help someone else wake up to theirs. And if this exploration of the hidden mind spoke to you, please like the video and subscribe. The more we understand our shadows, the less they control us. Until next time, stay aware, stay whole, and keep exploring the depths of who you are.